Hi guys, Arthur here from Homeowner DIY. In this video, I'm going to be installing a dryer vent for a laundry. Now, in my opinion, this is a relatively simple, straightforward job. There's not much that you need to know, and there's not much for work tools that you need either. But with that in mind, what we'll do now is look at our setup. Alright, so this is our setup. So this joist space here, we got a heating line, kitchen, gas, and then another heating line that's going to be a bit of an issue. But anyways, from this side here, the plan will be to grade upwards, and then we're going to drop into the laundry on the inside of the wall. Now this is a very short run, so it shouldn't be an issue, but guys, this is the inside here. It's only about 7 feet. What we'll do quickly is look at the outside and see what we have to work with. All right, so this is the outside. The wall is somewhere here, so we're gonna punch out through somewhere right around that area there. So guys, the stucco on the inside, we got a rim joist on the inside. Well, with that in mind, what we'll do now is material and tools. All right, this is the materials list for this job. So I have a wall cap. I have 3 lengths of 4-inch duct, 2 90s in the back. I don't know if I'm gonna need 1 or 2, so I just got 2 just in case. Number 8 by 3/4 screws, number 8 by 1/2 inch metal screws, 1/2 inch strap, clear silicone, number 8 by 1.5 inch deck screws, and then foil tape. Guys, this is the materials list for this job, so what we'll do now is a tools list. Alright, this is the tools list for this job. So I have my Ryobi drill bit set. I'll need a concrete bit. We'll see what else. My pouch, so hammer, tin snips, measuring tape. Cordless kit, grinder, sawzall drill for safety equipment. Respirator, safety glasses, earplugs. 1 1/8 inch drill bit, duct crimpers, silicone gun, a corded grinder with a diamond tip blade, and then a 5-foot ladder. Guys, this is what I need for tools on this job, so let's get started. Okay, so for a run here, this is 5 3/4, this top mark here, this is 6 3/4. So for the 5 3/4 is the top of the kitchen drain behind me that I have to go over. Now, because we want this end here to be the lowest point, because once the dryer shuts off, all the moisture is going to want to drip downward with slope, just like anything else. So my plan here is I'm going to go 6 3/4 to the bottom of the pipe, and by the time I reach the kitchen, which is another 3 feet over, the bottom should just sneak over the top, and then we're going to have our slope going outward. So what I'm going to do is I will cut this. I mean, it's already pretty... Actually, I don't even think I'm going to cut it. I'm just going to pull it down. So this will have to be redone later, the acoustical sealant, but that isn't going to be my job. It looks like we got a thermostat wire as well. And then we have our rim joist here. Alright, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this all set up, ready to go, and then we'll come back when I'm done. Alright, so there's the trace for my duct line that's going to go there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a drill bit. I'm going to punch a hole in the bottom. I'm going to assume this thing is probably roughly 1.5 inches thick. 1 3/8 is what the TGIs are, the top end and the bottom. So guys, the top and then the bottom down here are 1 3/8. So I am going to just assume that it's going to be the same thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole roughly 1 3/8, and then I'm going to use a concrete bit to punch a hole into the stucco outside. This is going to mark where I am outside. Now guys, I do not have a 4.5 inch hole saw for this. If you have one, feel free to use it. Just make sure that you're a little bit short, but I don't have one. I think a lot of DIYers won't have one as well. So I'm going to show you an alternative that will be slower, but it's going to save you from spending $75 to do one job or the odd job. Alright, so I've marked the end of my bit with a little bit of crayon. You can use tape if you want, but all I want to do is just punch through most of the way. Okay, I think that's far enough. So if you hear a change in the pitch, that means you went all the way through, but this is just basically an exploratory hole to see where we're going to be on the outside. Alright, so now I have my concrete built, and I'm also on the concrete setting, the hammer setting. Alright, so let's take a look where we are at on the outside. Alright, so this is the hole that I punched through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace out the hole on the outside here. And then I'm going to show you the way I'm going to go about this using basic DIY tools. Alright, so this is our hole that's been traced out. This is our wall cap, so you see how much bigger we have to work with. So you can go a little bit bigger as long as you're not going to exceed the white collar part around, as long as you don't go bigger than that. So you can go a little bit bigger, and then once this is installed, I'm going to silicone all the way around this here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a grinder, and I'm just going to keep going around in a circle. Again, I do not have a hole saw, so I have to do this the primitive way. I'm expecting the stucco to be about a ½ inch thick, but just take your time. You can always go bigger if you need to. So guys, I'm going to go ahead and cut through the stucco. Make sure that you have safety glasses, a respirator, and earplugs. Have your typical safety equipment for this. Alright, so I scored around it. I haven't gone all the way around on the outside, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a flathead and a hammer and break this stuff out. Alright, so this is the hole. So what I did was I went in like this. I went all the way around. So because it looks more like 3/4. After I did that, I started to go on an angle to take the back side out. Once that was all done, for the remainder, I took a flathead screwdriver and then I went outwards just to take the back out to make it relatively straight. This has taken me about 15 minutes to do, and I did it without any special tools. So now with our duct, you can see it looks good all the way around. It's relatively tight. So I'm going to drill a couple holes here, a couple holes here, a couple holes here, a couple holes here, and then the idea will be to take a sawzall and then go around, and then you'll have a hole without using a hole saw. Okay, I forgot that I have an 1 1/8" drill bit. It would be better to go with a bigger bit because it's easier to get a blade in here, but I'm going to drill a hole here, here, and then here, and then I'll go back to the inside and then I'll cut this out with the sawzall. Alright, so this is the wall cap. So first thing is, the seam, don't have it at the very bottom, have it somewhere up top. Just give this a spin if you need to. So there are a couple little holes cut into this, so you can give this a spin. So that's one thing. The next thing is, because we're going through a inch of stucco, I'm going to use instead a 2-inch number 8 deck screw. But because we have 1 inch of stucco, this is 11/16 concrete bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a pilot hole just through the stucco, and then this will go the rest of the way. This you want slightly bigger so you don't mangle your threads as you're tightening this up. And then one other thing is you want to make sure that you put foil tape around this, and then this will be ready for install on the outside. Alright, so I'm going to tape this here. So take your length of tape and just make sure it'll overlap. And make sure that you're using tape that is not old, because I just had an old roll and I realized that the adhesive was no good. And the tape wasn't even that old, and it's been inside the whole time. So explain that one to me, please. So make sure it sticks all the way down, all the way around. Remember, we're going to have warm, moist air coming through this. Okay, so for these other joints here, this is my personal opinion. You do not have to do this if you don't want to. Everything that I have read says you don't put screws between the joints. Now, I have seen laundry vents blow apart, and then they eventually got moldy drywall because of the warm, moist air. So I'm going to put one screw in. Remember, this is the center line down the middle. So I'm going to put one screw in off to the side. Okay, so with the screw, that's going to mechanically join these two parts together. Now, what you can also do is use a screw as a pilot bit to punch through, and then you can also take a grinder if you want and cut the very end of the screw off. So this is what I mean, just cut the tip off and then you'll have half the screw and you should be fine. In my opinion, this is better than just using tape and expecting the adhesive to last long term. So obviously when you're doing your joints, try to go right down the middle. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this outside. I'm going to put it through the hole, and then we're going to set the grade on our run before looking at screwing in the end cap to the stucco wall. Alright, so I've strapped here and then over there with 3/4 number 8 wood screws. So to set the grade, this is what we're setting grade off of. We have to go over it. So if we take a level, we have plenty of grade. So we'll put the insulation and the poly back in. This will have to be taped and re-sealed with acoustical sealant. But with this ready to go now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark out the holes for the screws and get ready to drill the pilot holes into the stucco and then silicone the wall cap to the wall and then screw everything in. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to level the box like this, and then I'm going to hold this in place, drill my pilot holes, all 4 of them, and then before I screw it in, I'm going to put a bead of silicone around, screw it in, and that'll keep the thing watertight and tight to the exterior wall. Alright, so I've drilled my holes. You'll hear a change in the pitch when you go through the stucco, or you can also just use a tape for depth gauge. Anyways, I'm going to silicone all on the inside here and then another bead here. Stick this up to the wall and screw it in. Once it's screwed in, we'll come back and see what it looks like. Okay, so there's a ring on the outside, ring on the inside. I'm going to push it in, give it a 1/4 turn back and forth to distribute the silicone, and then I'm going to put the screws in. Okay, so all the screws are in. Give it a twist, it's fine. It's siliconed in, everything is good to go now. So now we can continue on the inside. Alright, so to put this duct together, you see how it's shaped like this. So this part will go into here. Now I can't do this using gloves, it's too difficult. Okay, so after the eternal struggle, I've got the 2 pieces together. So take your duct crimpers and just depress in a little bit all the way around just to make it easier to slide in. Okay, with that ready to go, once again, the seam here I'm going to put to the top. Okay, so I strapped this side here. I put my screw in. I'm going to tape this up. I think it's better to set your grade for your run before you go back and tape, in case you have to change anything. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape this up now, and then we're going to look at our 90 and the piece that I need between this one here and our 90 that needs to be cut down. Okay, so this is what I need to do. I need to space out my two 90s because I got water pipe going through. So I measured this out at about 14 3/4. So if you're going to measure, make sure that you're adding an extra 1.25 per side because it's going to slide on the inside of one and then on the outside of the other. But this is roughly what this is going to look like. And then over here, I'm going to have another 90. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this down with the grinder, put this piece and this 90 together, and then we'll come back when it's time to get the other 90 all figured out. Alright, so using a grinder, I'll cut this down. Okay, so here's my piece. It's 6.5 inches. So I measured between the two. Now keep in mind, on the inside of the laundry room, you need to leave a 1/2 inch of space between the edge of the duct and the wall for drywall. In other words, you need to have something like that. If you're like this, you're going to be right at drywall. Anyways, what I'm going to do now is to get this ready to go. I got to crimp this and slide it into there, and then that'll be the last piece for this job. Alright, so just go all the way around. And when you do this, it should naturally just fall into the previous indentation. So when you've gone all the way around, just go and then bend in a couple places, just to make it a little bit easier to get it to slide on. Okay, so with this all ready to go, what I'm gonna do is I'll put a screw in here, I'll tape it, and then this will be the last piece for this run. Okay, so this is it. This is the run that is now done. So pitch the whole thing out towards the exterior wall, so when the machine shuts off, any water will drip down to the very end. Alright, it's also strapped up. I would say every maybe 3 feet should be fine. There is no weight here. It's just going to be warm, moist air blowing out. Make sure you tape all your joints. Make sure you have a tight seal. And when it comes to a dryer vent, it's really not all that much to do. But with that in mind, what we'll do now is going to review this job. Alright guys, so that concludes this job. So when it comes to doing a dryer vent, there's 2 things to keep in mind. First of all, the wall cap, the outlet, you want that to be the lowest point. When the dryer shuts off, any warm, moist air, you want it to drip outward. So you want to make sure that it's all going to go towards the outside, so anything that is left in the system is not going to drip back into the house. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is people will say don't screw your piping together. I think it is worth the disadvantage of having lint catch on the screws. The reason is that when you have to clean this thing out, you're going to be sure that it's going to hold together. Depending on foil tape, the adhesive can break down over time and not really stick all that much. And I've had this problem, actually. I had to throw out a roll of foil tape because that was the problem. So if you're going to clean out your dryer vent, at least the screws holding it together, you're sure that it's going to stay together and it's not going to break itself apart through wear and tear or when you throw a cable to clean. The time on this job. The time was about 4 hours. I didn't run into any problems on this. I'm sure I could have done a lot faster without filming, but everything went really well. This is another example here of map out what you're going to do ahead of time. If you have stuff in the way, you're going to have to negotiate the obstacles. I had a couple things in the way, but if you just have a straight shot run through a joist space, then you have a lot more flexibility than I had here. The cost of this job. The cost was $120, so that's the wall cap, piping, foil tape, silicone, and everything else. This is not an expensive job. It's not complicated. Just make sure that you have your slope, and like I said, I would prefer to screw things together to make sure that they stay together long term. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. I hope something here is going to help you on your project when you need to go ahead and do that. Guys, listen, please hit the like button. subscribe, and I'll see you on the next project.